the years, there's been much debate and competition when it comes to creating the highest rated anime of all time. And with such a large amount of anime being pumped out each season, we have a good selection of the good, the bad, and the ugly. A few have reached mass critical response, and others have temporarily taken the spot. But since it ended in 2010, this anime has yet to permanently lose its spot at the top of my anime list top 100 anime. Yes, for years, the #1 spot has been holded by Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is actually a remake of the original Full Metal Alchemist series, because that first series diverted a lot, and didn't quite follow the storyline of the original manga of Full Metal Alchemist. It's not often in a medium that a series comes along and dominates for as long and as hard as Full Metal has. There have been many close calls, but ultimately nothing has yet to topple it. This is partially due to a toxic portion of the fanbase downvoting any show that even comes close to it. But when the competition has questionable incest-based plot lines, I think I support it. Despite this, clearly this take resonates with enough people to stay at the #1 spot, regardless of downvoters or alleged bots. I myself am in the percent that believes Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the perfect anime and deserves that #1 spot, which is a take that's about as cold as Ice King's dump truck. This is not an objective thing, and my opinion would easily be swayed if Berserk was adapted properly, which has as likely a chance as Bloodborne actually imported to the PC. But I can think of many reasons that make FMA B, C, D, E, F, G a prime example of a definitive top anime. And I think above all else, it's what every shonen anime should be. Following the story of two young brothers, after their father never returns with the milk, their mother succumbs to a deadly illness and dies. So, like your average kids, they spend their afternoon raising the dead. This has rather less than fortunate results, as one ends up cosplaying my favorite character Nuts Berserk, and the other inhabiting a suit of armor. This tragic event now sends the two on a quest to recover the missing parts of their body. I guess you could say it cost them an arm and a leg. Already, this introduction sets up the stakes of our main character's journey. It gives us their motivations, introduces the concept of alchemy, and sets up its themes of how precious life is, learning from the pain, and to keep moving forward. Although, when moving forward causes you to uncover a nationwide sacrifice conspiracy, I don't think that's good advice. These themes are at the core of what makes Full Metal such a powerful story. Of course, it's rated as highly as it is because the animation is great, the music is strong, and it's one of the few anime where I recommend you watch it dubbed over subbed. Oh, shut up, it's better! But this show wouldn't be anywhere near the masterpiece it was without the characters. Colonel Mustang, King Bradley, Ling, the Homunculus, the classic third Elric brother Grumblo. The characters in this show all have conflicting ideals, morals, and convictions that come together to clash. It's these well-defined characters that I think a lot of shonen misses out on. Sure, it's fun to watch these flashy fights with incredible animation, complicated power systems, and thick plot, but that will never be as interesting and memorable as well-written characters. It does help that Full Metal tends to toe the line between genres. It's the series' biggest advantage of never fully committing to either shonen or seinen, much like Attack on Titan and Death Note. It gives the show a lot more room to toe into these darker themes while still not losing what people love about shonen. Whoever said you can't have your cake and eat it too is a damn liar. Because of this, the anime can carry the advantages of both genres without any of their disadvantages. Yes, we have a lot of goofy, silly scenes with a lot of laughs. And then we have body horror. We have action-packed fights with beautiful Sakuga that are a feast for the eyes. And then we have cultural genocide. Actually, just so I don't get demonetized, let's call this the Great Unalivement. Wait, no, it wasn't great! The Isfarlan War is one of the most harrowing parts of the story, where we discover that all our favorite characters are actually war criminals.
Legalize nuclear bombs.
These things don't just happen and we move on, but we instead see how the effects of this war changes our characters in different ways, whether it be Major Armstrong's guilt in taking the coward's way out, even though he knew just how wrong all of this was, Mustang's PTSD from committing these horrible acts, and vowing to become the next leader of Amestris to avoid such conflict again. And then there's King Bradley, who straight up says, "Fuck you. Your God's fake. Your Jordans are fake. L plus ratio. If you want me to die, then throw your own hands." He unsubbed from r/atheism later that night. The consequences are a prevalent theme throughout this arc, and in general, consequence is a huge part of the show. No action goes unignored or even unpunished, and there's very little that is forgotten as the series progresses, which is even easier to see with how these events feed into the plot. Throughout the series, events haven't just been happening for no reason, but instead have all been leading up into the final arc. Or let's call it by its name. The Promise Day, also known as the worst day for W. Gaiats in Ohio. This sounds like it's typical of any story in anime. Events should all lead into the final arc, but sometimes it feels like these shows very loosely connect, or things do just happen to get us to where we need to be. Most anime storylines are like this. Meanwhile, Fullmetal Alchemist is more like... it's like this. Well, technically it's more like this, and oh fuck no! Events all cross into each other. We see characters' independent storylines halfway across the nation that then weave into other characters' plotlines in a totally different part of the world. It's when the two brothers head to Briggs that this really comes into play. The two meet up with Olivia Armstrong, aka the baddest bitch in the series, and Kimberly, the most psychotic. After they leave Briggs with Kimberly, they find Scar. They get into a fight, double-cross Kimberly, and Ed almost fucking dies. So he literally becomes a human Philosopher's Stone and closes his wounds. Meanwhile, as they're taking him to safety, these guys are fighting this eldritch abomination. As this is happening, Ed and these guys find Ling, who warns them about the Promise Day. He turns back into greed, and they decide to travel with him. During this, Alphonse reunites with their father, who has still not got the damn milk. And over in City Central, Hawkeye is stalked by a devil child. Ed and the gang head to Winry's and accidentally catch her lacking, all the while King Bradley is being bombed by the IRA, and Alphonse is ambushed by the same demon child from before and Dream. Then Edward finally rejoins with the others, talks with his father, and... I need a minute. Why don't you guys subscribe while I'm catching my breath? It's this rich plot that makes Fullmetal a successful series. It isn't afraid to throw characters around the nation because it always knows how to bring them back in a natural way. The Ishvalan War initially seems like a mass murder with no real ulterior motives. Instead, it's revealed to be a fully coordinated plan, where past and future places of mass bloodshed have been fully planned out to make a nationwide transmutation circle with Daddy. I mean father. I just don't think I've seen many anime where so many different events connect to make, if I dare say, one of the greatest arcs in all of shonen, if not the best. Even if you don't love the series, it's hard to deny how rich and well thought out the plot is, and how it feeds into making a perfect ending. And it ties back to what I said about no character being forgotten. Even when Edward is focused on sacrificing his Door of Truth to save Alphonse, he can't help but take a minute to think back to Nina, that poor little girl that he couldn't save from, and this is no exaggeration, the world's most evil man in the world. I guess the silver lining is that Nina Taka does now have that dog in her. The epilogue itself gives us closure for all these beloved characters, wrapping their stories up in satisfying ways that, honestly, while I could see a sequel being possible, I don't feel like there's really a need for it. In a way, it would almost diminish everything the series achieves. Because... okay, enough of that! Because the series doesn't overstay its welcome. When it comes to anime production in the modern era, we see nothing like the caliber of what studios used to put out before. Anime will typically be 24 episodes a season, if they're lucky, with a large majority being 12, which tends to screw some of them over. They even started to split them up into parts, such as Attack on Titan Season 4, the final chapters, Part 3 of Part 2, the final saga. Things like this don't hold anime back in today's age too much, but nothing will come close to the sheer domination Studio Bones had with the series. Think about the last time you saw a 64-episode long anime air weekly with no breaks from beginning to end, with no signs of production issues, egregiously bad animation, and with none of the bad pacing like some weekly anime I enjoy. Just fucking push him already! From beginning to end, even with the first few episodes rushed due to its previous series, it feels so rare to have an anime air like this, and almost impossible for it to happen in the modern age. If Chainsaw Man had this level of production and schedule, then the anime would have been a huge success, unlike the mixed feedback the first series has had. Why didn't they think of the poor gooners who need their Makima screen time? Most anime succeed anyways, but I don't believe any of these anime can replicate the magic time bubble Fullmetal was airing in. In the time that it aired from 2009 to 2010, it more or less had no meaningful competition, besides maybe Fairy Tail, which is just laughable. That's like comparing a fine steak dinner to an Arby's sandwich. Fullmetal's biggest strength was also just how much of a broad appeal it could generate. Some anime only cater to those with certain tastes and vibes. The same could be said of Fullmetal, but realistically speaking, I feel this is one of the safest anime to introduce people to the medium. There's very little filler, no egregious fan service, and no well, weird shit. It's simply a well-told story with enough fights to keep you entertained, enough characters that everyone can find a favorite, and fitted with great animation, great music, and a length that feels perfect for a series like this. I fundamentally believe that, at least for now, nothing will top this series for me. Attack on Titan came close, and while I don't hate the ending, it was, and I hate to use this word, just a bit mid. This is just my opinion though, and although I am confident my opinion is the best and you should listen to me, I am pretty biased because I've loved this anime for years. But at the end of the day, I think people care way too much over what's higher on a superficial list. You don't need your favorite series to be number one. I know, it's a hard concept for the anime community to grasp a hold of, but believe it or not, we all have different opinions. You can comment by calling the series mid, my channel mid, or my cat mid. Although if you comment that last one, then watch out.
I'm coming after you.
It's undeniable the impact and cultural significance Fullmetal Alchemist has achieved. But the greater point is, don't hold other people's opinions so tightly against your own. Who cares if someone calls your favorite series bad? Although, if you can endure that pain and walk away from it, you'll find that you now have a dick strong enough to overcome any obstacle. Yeah, a cock made full metal. Oh, what am I saying?